Start recording, and then I will take this down and I can edit this part out. Hi guys, I want to talk about the liberal international order in a bit better detail. So the liberal international order, or the rules-based order, like I've said, I think that they were going to say New World Order. Politicians were saying that. You can still find it on YouTube. But then with Alex Jones, Infowars, and everything else, all the conspiracy theory stuff, it got a really bad, I think, and now they use rules-based order. They don't even really use the liberal international order. Really just rules-based order, but some people use this, and this is what it's sort of can be known as. So let's see what it is. So it's a international order constituted by human equality, freedom, rule of law, and human rights. Open markets, security cooperation, so countries helping each other out with the military and intelligence, promotion of liberal democracy, and monetary cooperation. So pretty much all of that right there is just a lie. I'd say almost none of it is how the liberal international order really works. I mean, you look at open markets here. Maybe they did have open markets before, but right now they're heavily restricting trade with China because China is starting to overtake them all of a sudden. And so their whole principle of globalism is going out the window, and they're putting tariffs on electric vehicles, and you know, they put sanctions on other countries that they don't like, other countries that are not in the international order. They've put sanctions on these people for decades. So this whole open market is just a big lie. Human equality, rule of law. Well, the idea that we're ruled by laws is not true, and it's never really been true, and it never really will be true, because we're ruled by people, and people interpret the law, and they interpret the law however they really want, and they can get away with a lot of things, and they do get away with a lot of things. You know, we have judges and we have juries, right? So that's people giving you sentences, people interpreting the law. Freedom, I would not say that people in countries in the liberal international order have more freedom than countries outside necessarily. You know, freedom to do what? Freedom to be a mortgage slave for 30 years, or freedom to get fired if you say something slightly derogatory or slightly offensive to someone. Freedom to be cancelled, freedom to, you know, whatever. You get the point. I mean, do we have that much more freedom here than we have in Russia? I don't think so. Human rights for some. What about the human rights for all those girls in northern England, victims of the Muslim grooming gangs for decades, that they did nothing about because they're from northern England, which is a poor, white, conservative area, and they just don't care about them. And the police didn't do anything, and the police admitted they didn't do anything because they didn't want to be seen as racist. So human rights for some, human equality, no, I don't think so. Security cooperation, yeah, NATO and the EU, and they all tend to work together, I suppose. Promotion of liberal democracy. This idea of democracy is just a total sham. First of all, it's clear that the United States especially is not interested in democracy. You have here on Wikipedia a long list of the US involvement in regime change for over 100 years. The CIA goes wherever they want and they do whatever they want with other countries, and they install whoever they want there because they don't care about democracy. And this list is not even exhaustive because they don't even have, for example, the 2005 coup in Ukraine. Where is that? It's not there, even though we know the CIA was heavily involved in that. We had a leaked tape from Victoria Nuland, and they were discussing which leader they would like for the Ukraine. So this is not even exhaustive, but the US does not care about democracy, in other countries at least, and I would argue they don't care about democracy in their own country. The proof is in the election was stolen. This article is the best article I've seen on the 2020 rigged election in America, and it's just succinct and it's unquestionable. I think most people, well, if you're a conservative, you would agree that the election was rigged, and if you're a liberal, you would also agree that it was rigged, but you just pretend that you don't think that. And actually you accuse the Republicans that the 2016 election was rigged. And you say, it was Russian bots. But here we have, I've read enough of the fraud reports, affidavits, and statements from election security and forensic experts to be comfortable in my conclusion the election was stolen. Electoral fraud was organized in all of the states. The purpose was not to try to steal the red states, but to make the vote look closer than the expected pattern in order to provide cover for extensive fraud in the critical swing states. He goes into more detail than I'm going to give here. There are backdated mail-in ballots. There are mail-in ballots without a crease, that is, ballots never folded and placed in an envelope, and so on and so on. And then he says, if this is all too demanding for your time and energy, fall back on common sense. Consider that Biden's Twitter has 20 million and Trump had 90 million. Consider that Biden had 8 million on Facebook and Trump had 35 million. Consider that Biden's total failure to animate voters during the presidential campaign, but he still received 15 million more votes than Barack Obama in 2012, and Obama was known for his charisma, being able to energize his followers. Consider that Biden won despite underperforming Hillary in every urban US county, but somehow he outperformed her in Detroit, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Philadelphia, the precise cities where the most obvious and most blatant electoral fraud was committed. Biden won despite receiving a record low share of the Democrat primary vote compared to Trump's share. Consider that Biden won despite Trump bettering his 2016 vote by 10 million votes, which is massive, and he got a lot in 2016. Ohio and Florida, bellwether counties and bellwether states of Ohio and Florida. Biden won in Georgia, even though Georgia is a completely red state with a red governor and red House and Senate. And the Democrats lost the House, but Biden still won. It's just ridiculous. The deep state Democrat National Committee and media whores did not steal the election because they don't like Trump's hair or because he's a racist, misogynist Russian agent or caused COVID, blah, blah, blah. Trump is hated because he is anti-establishment. He's not going to be in line with the liberal international order. It's just as simple as that. Unfortunately, being a populist is not enough to overthrow an entrenched elite. Only a revolutionary can do that. Trump is not revolutionary. I just thought that was interesting. But that's the best article I've seen by Paul Craig Roberts. So they don't care about democracy. They don't care about human equality. They don't care about open markets. I'm not going to worry about security and monetary. The liberal international order was established after World War II, led by the US. So the US is clearly the leader. They have a bigger military than all the other countries combined. But there are other countries. Western European countries, Japan, South Korea now is pretty much involved. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, these kinds of places. So it was established after World War II. That is when there was no more that had been liberal for decades before World War II, but they were no longer contested. They had complete power. But the US and other countries, they had been liberal for many, many decades leading up to World War II. They didn't just flick a switch, right? They just beat the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians, and then they crushed them afterwards. But these countries, regardless of who was in power, whether a liberal, whether a Democrat or a Republican was in power, these countries had been fulfilling the liberal agenda for many decades, leading up to World War II, and afterwards, in recent decades, despite having Republicans in office, they still fulfill the liberal international order agenda, taking down countries that oppose the liberal agenda has been domestically has been increasing since I've been born. Here we go. Externally, the liberal international order is challenged by authoritarian states and illiberal states. That's the key one. And states that are discontented with their roles in world politics. So they always say that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea have been characterized as prominent challengers to the LAO. So, authoritarian states, that is another lie. That's complete crap, because the liberal international order is just as authoritarian as anyone. People are going to jail, and they've been going to jail for years now. Not everyone, but some people have been going to jail for making social media posts that are slightly anti-immigration. And you go to jail for years just for saying something or liking posts on social media. Is that not authoritarian? And what about COVID, where you couldn't leave your house without being heavily fined? You had to wear masks, etc., etc. You couldn't catch public transport without a mask. I tried. Is that not authoritarian? So that's just bullshit. The key is that the other states are, one, they're not liberal, so they're conservative, and two, they're powerful, like they have nuclear weapons, or they have strong military, or they're like North Korea, who only recently got nukes and probably doesn't have, well, they might have a decent military, I don't know about that, but they're completely immune to any liberal propaganda or liberal infiltration, completely immune. So they're an enemy, right? Even if they're not powerful. So these countries, China and Russia and Iran, they're conservative. The conservative parties are in power, or at least the culture of conservatism is prominent in those countries. So in America and in every country in the world, you got 50% of people who are liberals and 50% who are conservatives. And some people are soft conservatives or soft liberals, and some people are strong conservatives, far right and far left, right? And in Russia, you have 50% liberals, 50% conservatives. Same thing in China, same thing in America. That's just how it works. And right now, in Russia and in China, the conservatives are dominating. China, I think, had a civil war in like the 50s or something, and the losers fled to Taiwan. So now Taiwan, that's why Taiwan is sort of part of the liberal international order. And, you know, I guess the conservatives in China are one. I don't know much about it, but in Russia, you had the Soviet Union, collapse of the Soviet Union, which was apparently... After that, like, the Russian people, they were just sick of liberalism, sick of communism, sick of this equality crap, and they just tried, well, it didn't work, we're going to swing back the other way. So now they're more traditional. And America, where the liberals have been in power for many, many decades, is just getting completely ridiculous with the amount of equality they have. And as I was saying, when they accused the Republicans of a rigged election in 2016, that the Russians supported the Republicans with Russian bots or hacking or whatever, and that's because the Russians and Putin, they're conservative, and so they automatically tie them to the conservatives in America. They're both conservative. Putin is a conservative guy. There's another point. What was I going to say? Yeah, Trump and Putin, they met. I think Trump might have gone to Russia, and Trump was saying, like, oh, we have the fake news problem in my country, you know, I got to deal with that problem all the time, the lying liberal media. And Putin's like, no, we got exactly the same problem here. Exactly the same problem, because they got liberals in Russia too. So that's the liberal international order, right? And so all this stuff that they say they're based on, globalism, equality, democracy, it's obviously complete crap. So what are they really based on? What is liberalism? What is the liberal international order all about? Well, I would argue that it's really about parasitism, and that liberals are parasites, and that is their so-called life strategy, because the occupations they do, the way they run their countries, it's all for profit. It's parasitic. It is not productive at all. It's not long-sighted. You know, it's just greedy and parasitic and destructive. They don't even, like a lot of parasites, they can sometimes destroy their own food source. And they can bring about their own destruction, I mean to say. Anything else? That's about all, I guess. Some scholars have argued that it could trigger backlash. I mean, I guess you could argue that with any movement in it, but yeah, the liberal international order. And it's not just liberals. It is liberals, but it's not just white liberals. there's also Jewish liberals. It's really an alliance of Jewish people and white liberals in the Western world. And if the Jews were not helping out, there would be no liberal international order. The Jewish people are very, very smart and very cohesive and organized and ambitious, and they are leading the charge. They have a lot of influence in America, and America leads the liberal international order. Jewish Americans have a lot of influence in America, and also Israel has a lot of influence over America. And so you got Israeli Jews and American Jews, and they're basically the vanguard of the whole liberal international order. There are Jews in Western Europe, and they are leading, but white liberals are also part of it, because there's many, many more of them, and without their support, there can be no liberal international order. But without the Jewish vanguard, there can also be no liberal international order. That's about all.